The week before Bloody Sunday, there was a civil rights march.
So this is the lead up.
Yeah, there was a civil rights march down at Higilligan. There was an army base down there. There was a prison down there, and the marchers. I'm not sure. I can't recollect completely whether they were making their way to the army base or to the prison, but they were stopped as they paraded across Higilligan Strand, which is a beach, and they were stopped by the paratroop regiment, who wouldn't allow them to proceed any further. They had barbed wire across the beach, etc., and then it developed into a violent confrontation. John Hume was there, very prominent at the time, and a number of other nationalist stroke Republican people, and it didn't end well. A lot of people were very, very badly injured. So the next week there was a big civil rights march to take place from Derry. Some people were against it. Some people felt it should go ahead. It was prescribed by the Northern Ireland authorities at the time. I think a man called Craig I forget his actual term for his office, but he banned it. He prescribed it, so it was technically, in their eyes, an illegal march.
Okay.
So huge crowd assembled at Creggan. Everybody that I know was on that march, including my wife to be, who actually was a very prominent witness in the whole Bloody Sunday inquiry afterwards. The march assembled at Creggan. Everybody was good form, good mood, great hype about the thing. And we proceeded up Enniscarn Road, down Southway, down through the Lowmere Road, I think. No, down the Brandwell, over the Lecky Road, up Weston Street, across the Lowmere Road, down Creggan Street, down William Street, and when we got to the junction of Roswell Street, the march was supposed to proceed on to the Guildhall Square, but the army paratroopers had blocked it at the junction of Chamberlain Street. The people at the front of the march, who were the main organisers, they decided to avoid confrontation. They would take the march across Roswell Street to what was to become Free Derry Corner. So, but a number of mainly young people broke away from the main march and went down to confront the paratroopers at the junction of Chamberlain Street and William Street. The paratroopers engaged water cannon. There was a brief, it went on for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. There was a lot of stone thrown. The paras were firing rubber bullets. And as I said, they had the cannons there, the water cannon. People were being hosed. And then the paratroopers broke through. The crowd scattered. Some went over Chamberlain Street towards the high flats. Others went up William Street to go across Roswell Street. The paras came through both in Saracens, that was a type of armoured car, and a large number of paratroopers on foot. they proceeded to take up positions both in Chamberlain Street and near the high flats and in Glenfada Park in Bogside. And it was at that point. Well, there was an earlier incident that it was a bit controversial. There was somebody actually shot earlier on from the army had taken up sniper positions in high buildings in Great James Street, and there was. But the main body of the shooting happened whenever the paras broke through the barricade. People scattered. There was pandemonium because there was just constant high velocity gunfire.
So this wasn't just rubber bullets at the
Oh
time.
no!
Then they were.
This was high velocity 7.62 SLR ammunition. A number of people were hit. A number of people were shot in Glenfada Park, which was a square behind houses, which I actually went through in my efforts to get out of the firing line.
When they were shooting, were they shooting for any specific point of the body? Were they trying for the head, the body? Were they trying to kill him, or was it legs?
Well, you tell me. 14 people were killed and a huge number injured. While I was going through that square, I could see concrete, being chipped out of walls where you could see rounds impacting on houses and walls and so forth. I got into a house at the back of Glenfada Park, and there was a guy already in there. I think his name was Joe Mahan. He was lying on the floor, had a gunshot wound to his back, and he was being treated by, I think it was members of there was a group called the Knights of Malta, who were a voluntary medical organisation who were there that day in very large numbers and did an absolute great job. And, without them, probably more people could have died.
How many people were shot that day?
Well, I don't know the exact figure, but 13 died that day, and another died later of his injuries. And a fairly large number of other people had various degrees of injuries.
Did you have any idea that was going to happen that day?
Not really. My recollection is that the IRA at the time, there was engagement between the IRA, to my knowledge, and the organisers of the march, and it was agreed that the IRA would not become active in any way towards any of the army or police on that day, because they didn't want to give the army any excuse. But as it turned out, they didn't need any excuse.
Why do you think the British Army opened fire that day? Because it's a peaceful protest.
I think they wanted to assert control, and they wanted to strike terror into the nationalist population. They wanted to show that they weren't going to stand if a parade was prescribed. They were going to act to make sure that this wasn't going to happen again.
I suppose it's a lot to take in that day at the time for you.
It took a good while to sink in. People were probably although they mightn't have known it at the time, they were traumatized a bit and sort of in shock because, like, it was huge that 13 people were to be killed within 20 minutes.
What were your feelings around that at the time?
Shock probably was the biggest. When the names began to emerge, it came out that the husband of my first cousin was one of them who died. His name was Jerry McKinney, and his wife was Ida, who was called after my mother. Ida was pregnant at the time with another child. I think she had 2 or 3 children prior to that, and she's pregnant again. And that child was born after Jerry, her husband, Jerry, was killed that day. He's actually buried out here in Iskaheen, because that's where his family were from.
Yes. What age was Jerry at the time?
I would say Jerry at the time would have been maybe early 40s.
Do you think that it was just the the army at the time amongst themselves that decided to shoot fire? Do you think that was someone
Yes, it was totally contrived. They, when
would have been from somebody back in London?
the officer in charge was interviewed afterwards, and he spoke in terms of the army coming under fire from numerous positions, which was totally untrue. They said that they fired on gunmen, on petrol bombers, on nail bombers. One of the people who died was a wee child, very young boy, and they actually planted 2 nail bombs in his pockets when he was being taken to hospital in a car. They stopped the car. They then planted 2 nail bombs on him, and all that came out in the bloody Sunday inquiry.